I do think there is some dry air working in our favor, though, and I do think that dry air is trying to inject itself into this system. It will battle that dry air basically through its entirety. And again, I think that's why we didn't end up with a situation like what we had last year with Michael, which got into some very warm water and then just went crazy. It went from tropical storm to Category 5 within just a couple of days. And I think it's that dry air sitting to our north that's actually preventing a lot of that from happening. There's been a ton of shear on the northern side of the system as well. So again, while we always worry about the sea surface temperatures, there's a lot of factors that go into the formation of something like this. It's a very complex system that is working its way towards us right now. So again, this is a look at some of the dry air, and you can see it on the water vapor imagery. And I think a little bit of that is getting injected now. That being said, the center does seem to be doing a pretty good job of closing itself off. While it's still going to battle the shear on the northern side and will kind of prevent it from getting a little bit better structure, that's keeping the center fairly well isolated. So that's why I think that it does keep intensifying as it stays out over the Gulf of Mexico. Now, when it comes on land, you'll start to see it weaken slowly, very, very slowly. That tropical storm strength is going to hold all the way past Alexandria, close to Shreveport here as we go through the rest of the day. And remember, it's moving incredibly slowly as well. When it comes to the winds, this is what we're looking at right now. Through Terrebonne Parish, you largely have 40 to 50 mile an hour winds through there. Creeping up into St. Mary, kind of going back and forth. St. Mary Parish certainly has had tropical storm force winds through parts of the morning right now. Patterson getting a little bit of a break at 28 miles an hour sustained. That's still very, very windy through Patterson. Homa registering at about 39 miles an hour from Lafayette. We've got our winds coming in almost straight out of the east at about 13. It's been going up and down here through the course of the morning. The way these things go is everything kind of arrives in waves. If this is your first time going through one of these tropical systems, you'll notice that you will get a big burst of wind that will be accompanied with a big burst of rainfall, and then it'll kind of ease up again. And then you'll get another one that kind of swings through, and that's the nature of these storms. Fairly windy up through Opelousas right now at about 15 miles an hour. Then you've got the northerly component and the northerly flow out through Jennings and Lake Charles. That's going to help keep some of the water off and out of the marshes of Cameron and even western Vermillion Parish for the time being. Now, you are still going to see some inundation there up through those southern marshes, but it's going to clear out a little bit quicker as long as you're on the northern side. You can catch some of that drier air coming down, and that should help push some of the water off the shoreline as well. Again, no such luxury out for residents who live along Vermilion Bay, especially out over through St. Mary. Now, when it comes to the wind gusts, these have been a little bit higher through the course of the morning. We've seen them peak at times up to about 55 in some areas out over towards Patterson. They got a wind gust right now of about 38, close to 50 out through Homa, but it does look like there are some wind gusts of about 50 sitting out over through Morgan City and down along the coastline right now. Just offshore, and in fact just south of Morgan City offshore, we've seen wind gusts get as high as about 80 miles an hour, and I think some of that is on the way here over the next couple of hours, so be on alert. Wind gusts close to about 20 miles an hour in Lafayette right now, coming in out of the northeast. There's going to be those quick bursts of wind, but we have a very, very windy day as well. This is the European model. It has done well so far. It's kind of guided us through the course of the week, so don't want to abandon it now. And again, some of the short range models without that Hurricane Hunter data, it's kind of been all over the place all the way through the majority of the morning, so we'll hold with the steady forecast. Now again, this is just one model. There are going to be a little bit of variations in what actually happens and what the model is predicting. But what it does do, and what we can use this for, is to demonstrate what we're going to be dealing with over the next 24 hours. Again, don't lock in to one particular location. Keep an eye on what it's trying to tell us. And what it's trying to tell us is that once this thing works its way through, this is Lafayette, this is the center of the storm, this is 1 o'clock, all the wind is going to be out ahead of it, and the rainfall is going to be behind it. So you'll notice the winds are going to pick up, and if you think, in a few hours' time, wow, the center's on top of us, we haven't had any rainfall, remember, it's coming. It is back behind that center where we are going to see the rain. To the east and to the south is where it's going to be the worst, and that's going to continue for several days here. This is midnight Sunday, and in some cases, the rain will just be getting going. Those heavy, heavy bands of rain, those training storms that we were talking about, that may not happen until overnight tonight, which adds the complication of everything is very dark. And once you start seeing the water coming out, or once you start seeing the rainfall setting up like this, those are the type of rains that can prompt evacuations and rescues. And it looks like that may be happening in the dark as well. So again, I would urge everyone to just stay on top of it and monitor the situation. It doesn't necessarily mean that 24 hours a day you have to be tuned in for every single minute, but I would keep us on in the background and keep apprised of everything and check in certainly through the day, through the morning, through the afternoon as well. This is what it looks like all the way up through midnight tonight. This takes us to Sunday. You can still see heavy rainfall in some cases out over through Vermillion, for instance, or at least on this model, it's just getting going in the morning. So again, some of you will not see the heaviest stuff and the worst weather until a little bit later on down the line when that low is sitting up over towards Shreveport. You can see that corridor continues to come up through the Baton Rouge area, stretching up over towards Monroe. Now remember, a slight jog in this will take this corridor and move it westward slightly. We saw that with one of the runs last night. The 12Z European run came in, and a bit of a scare for Acadiana, a little wake-up call there that we're still within that margin of error. And even so, what has been the most consistent from run to run has been that most of Acadiana takes on 6 to 12 inches of rain. And if this was an ordinary weekend, we would still be talking about the flood potential with 6 to 12 inches of rain. That's a ton of water. So don't get caught up in the fact that there might be even more next door. Remember that we have our own round of water to deal with, and we may end up with some of the heavier stuff. We are not out of it just yet. You have to wait and see where all of that, where those heaviest showers are setting up. We may not know that until this afternoon. So you're going to hear this message repeated over and over again. But just remember, this is going to be a multi-day thing. So the corridors, the heavy rainfall could continue all the way through into Sunday evening. It may not be until sometime Monday morning when things do start to ease up. We are in this for the long haul. This is going to be a marathon. It is not going to be a sprint. And again, it is going to take a tremendous amount of endurance. And I would say one of the things that kind of happens with a storm like this is people become overwhelmed. They become exhausting. It can take a mental toll as well. If the power goes out and you're dealing with the heat, that's certainly a physical toll, but these things take a mental toll as well. So I would say over the next couple of days, give yourself a break from some of the coverage sometimes, even if that means just tuning out some of this information for a little bit. You will feel better afterwards. You'll make better decisions that way, and then come back, see how things have changed and where to go from there. Again, please take care of yourself during these storms. Everyone is cooped up. It's raining outside. It's windy. The winds are howling around everywhere. You can go stir crazy really, really quickly. So again, give your mind a break from all of this. We'll be here all the way through the weekend. We'll have all of that information for you. We'll be updating things pretty much constantly, so you can tune in and out, and you can always come back, and you know that you're going to be able to find the latest bit here. But again, please take care of yourself during these things, not just physically, but mentally as well. This model goes up all the way through Sunday morning. You can see where that swath of rainfall does get going. 15 to 20 inches worth of rainfall. There's going to be a corridor somewhere. There's going to be an area of Louisiana that catches that much rainfall with hotspots of 25 to 30. We are still trying to nail down where exactly that is going to be. Several runs in a row had it just to the east of the basin, but then yesterday afternoon it jogged it back to the west a little bit. Again, like I said, a little bit of a wake-up call. We don't want to get complacent here. We want to make sure that we do stay on top of everything. If I was taking a best guess and I was going to say that the areas in Acadiana that are most likely to see the 15 to 20 inch rainfall, it would be St. Mary, it would be coastal Iberia, and it would be lower St. Martin. It is this area right here going out over towards Vermilion Bay that seems to always be in this corridor of heavy rain. Even as it went northwards and it shifted westwards a little bit, more so into Acadiana, that area was still in that corridor. It has been run after run after run that has indicated that. So I would say that down through St. Mary Parish, portions of Iberia Parish, portions of Lower St. Martin, you guys are in there for that heavy, heavy amount of rainfall. The rest of Acadiana, you're still talking 6 to 12, kind of as a best case scenario. That's still a lot of water, so we will pay attention to the river levels, we will pay attention to the roadways, and again, wherever you are now, I would just kind of stay there until all of this is over. That's the best course of action, unless you absolutely have to leave because water's coming up or something like that. The best course of action is really to just stay in place and stay safe, as long as that is the safest option to do so. So again, we will know once the storms start to set up, we'll have a better idea of where this is going to be. We're looking for a little more consistency from model to model run. They've been all over the place. And because we're in the margin of error, that means that we are pretty much constantly going to see those numbers change in Lafayette. It's incredibly frustrating. I know it's frustrating for you guys at home. For the forecasters, it's frustrating as well, because we're trying to get you guys the best information we can. And right now, the best information is someone's going to get it. We're just waiting to see who it's going to be. So we will be prepared for that 15 to 20, but we will hope for the 6 to 12 or even less. You know, honestly, I think if we caught an inch worth of rainfall and it was a total bust, everyone would be perfectly happy with it. We spent a weekend getting worked up, but nothing really happened. I don't think that's going to be the case. So again, be prepared for the worst of it. And we'll bring you that information kind of as we go along. Those of you who are sitting at home, you're kind of thinking to yourselves, what does 15 to 25 inches worth of rainfall mean? How much rain is that? That is a ton of rainfall. Homes and businesses then do start to flood, and it may not even be areas that had ever flooded before, depending on where those showers start to set up. So what that means is, and what becomes important, is that you've got to watch and watch that water and notice if the water's coming up or starting to come into your home. Even if you think to yourself, well, I've never flooded before, I'm not going to flood this time. If you start catching some of this type of rainfall, that could change very, very quickly. So be on alert, be vigilant, even as we go overnight tonight, especially as we go overnight tonight when a lot of people will sleep and kind of let their guard down. Stuff like that can prompt evacuations and rescues as well. Flooded roadways, they become basically impassable, so don't even try it. And then some of the roads could even corrode from underneath, and you could see them start to collapse. So what that means is that you could be driving down the road that you drive every day, and all of a sudden there's a gigantic pothole there because the road has kind of been corrupted and fallen in with some of that heavier rainfall. It's just best to avoid those dangers. So again, as long as it is safe to do so, you need to just stay off of the roadways and stay in place. We talked a little bit about the Vermillion River. It's actually in the top 10 lowest that it ever has been, which is some good news. Again, we're getting ready to see a ton of rain. Crest forecast right now is 15 feet, but notice when that is. That's not until early Sunday morning. So again, to reiterate the fact, this is a long haul type of system. We are going to be talking about this all the way through the day today. You're going to be talking about it overnight tonight. We will likely be talking about it early on tomorrow. Now, because we've had some stronger winds coming in from the north, you see this sometimes where the water will dip sharply. Most of the time, though, that's in the winter when we can get those cold fronts that come through. They produce those really, really strong northerly winds that can push that water actually downriver and out into the Gulf of Mexico. Then you also have this swirling gigantic storm that is pulling those tides in and kind of spitting them back out on the other part of the storm, the eastern part of the storm, so it's sucking some of that water out. And that's why you're seeing that drop there, which is pretty good because it means that we're in a better place to take on a lot of water. Because look how low it is now, and that forecast still takes it up to about 15 feet. I think Dave was saying in 2016 it got a little bit over 17 feet. That's going to be the record there as well. So we're going to let it go right there. That was a lot of information to kind of comprehend and take in. We're going to send it back over to the desk and get you guys a little bit more news. Guys?
All right, thanks, Daniel. And right now, officials in Lafayette Parish are gearing up for storm response.
Justice Henderson joins us live now from the Lafayette Parish Sheriff's Office this morning with more. Justice.
So we're here outside of the Lafayette Parish Sheriff's Office, and something cool going on that we found downtown in the midst of what's about to be some really, really bad weather. We met someone here that is in town. They came from all over the country, and what they do is they feed first responders and they feed people who are in shelters during natural disasters. So I'm going to bring in Sam Block here. And Sam, tell us a little bit about the company that you're with and, a little bit about what you guys do.
Well, World Central Kitchen was started by Chef Jose Andres, and we started after the 2010 Haiti earthquake. And then after Hurricane Maria hit Puerto Rico, we started really doing what we're doing now, and that's good, dignified food after natural disasters. And
so today, I caught you down here while we were outside the Sheriff's Department. What are you guys doing for the Sheriff's Departments and the local shelters?
Well, right now, while the storm's still approaching, we're making sure that everybody that will be responding has got a good meal and they're fueled up and ready for whatever they might need to do.
And tell me, what is the mission behind this? Why do you guys feel the things that you guys do is really important?
I mean, food is important to, nutrition, but we also look at food as it's something very comforting. People have been through a lot, traumatized time, displaced, things like that. It's really important that they have that, a good meal to sit down, warm meal, sit down and feel like a human and forget about some of the things that might be going on around them.
Perfect, thank you. And guys, we'll be out here outside the Sheriff's Department. We are still hanging out with the Sheriff's Department, hanging tight. The search and rescue crew is inside. If in fact we get some major flooding and the search and rescue crew has to be deployed, they will then do that. They have boats and Humvees and their high water rescue, but for now they're going to get some good food courtesy of these very special people that have came down to make sure they were taken care of. In Lafayette, Justice Henderson, KATC TV3.
Thank you, Justice. Right now, we only have one road closure to tell you about. In Vermillion Parish, the pontoon bridge at Humble Canal on LA 3147 in Freshwater City is closed as the storm surge starts to pour in. Officials say that bridge will remain closed until after the storm has passed.
And thousands across the state are in the dark this morning. More than 50,000 Entergy customers are without power. Over 2,000 of those are here in Acadiana. Those parishes are Acadia, Lafayette, St. Martin, and Vermillion. And CLECO is reporting that 92 outages with about 6,000 customers affected. Those parishes include Acadia, Evangeline, Iberia, St. Landry, St. Mary, as well as Vermillion parishes. And Slimco has more than 600 outages with about 1,000 customers affected. Those parishes include Acadia, Iberia, Lafayette, St. Landry, St. Martin, as well as Vermillion. And LUS says surrounding communities are answering the call for help, posting on their Facebook page. Crews from the city of Tallahassee and Gainesville Regional Utilities are here ready to help restore power to people around the area. LUS also saying an additional 80 tree trimmers, mechanics, and line workers have joined LUS employees to help with the cleanup process.
And Governor Edwards will give the next storm update later on today. At 11, Edwards will hold another Unified Group Command meeting to discuss the storm and preparations. Following that meeting, there will be a press conference with the latest information.
And as Barrie moves inland, if you haven't evacuated, the FEMA guide states to move to a small interior windowless room or hallway on the lowest floor that's not subject to flooding.
And as the water rises around your house, move to higher ground or higher floor. If trapped in a building by flooding, go to the highest level of the building. Do not climb into a closed attic. You may become trapped by rising floodwaters. Use a generator or other gasoline-powered machinery outdoors only and away from windows.
Don't walk, swim, or drive through flood waters. Turn around and don't drown. And remember, just because your vehicle can make it through the water doesn't mean you should be driving through it.
The area they're in may not flood, but the areas around them flood, and when they go out into these flood waters, they create wakes and create more problems for those that are already flooded. And then it's just a general safety precaution.
Well, shelters are up and running in St. Mary Parish. Berwick Civic Center, the Baldwin Civic Center, and the Franklin Recreational Center are all open for those looking for a safe place. For more shelter information, you can call 211 or text LA Shelter to 898-211. Remember to bring your ID and medication with you. Some shelters don't allow pets, so check with your parish office of emergency preparedness to make sure. And right now, there are curfews across Acadiana.
These are the parish-wide curfews that are currently in effect. St. Martin Parish was under a curfew until 7 this morning. That is over right now, but it will go back into effect today from dusk until dawn. St. Landry Parish's curfew will start at noon today and run through 6 o'clock tomorrow evening.
And there are more curfews throughout Lafayette Parish. Here's a list of those areas. This all could change as the storm continues to slowly move through our area. For more information on curfews, you can visit our website at katc.com and our free KATC News app. We're constantly updating that list to keep you informed.
And Barrie will be bringing a lot of rain to the area and is expected to drop water in a short period of time. That could lead to some flooded streets. This video taken Friday from Golden Meadow. Remember, or rather a reminder, don't drive on streets with water that's rushing over it. It can hide dips, debris, and the road could have been washed away entirely. Also, 6 inches of water is ample to hit the bottom of most passenger cars, flooding the exhaust and leaving you immobile. And 1 foot of water can cause most cars to float. If you can't walk through water, especially moving water, don't attempt to drive across it. Down power lines and debris can easily harm you. Wet roads can lead to deadly accidents and hydroplaning. And in St. Mary Parish, more than 5,000 people are without power as Barrie closes in.
As Katie Easter reports, she's now in Morgan City with a look at that. Katie.
Hey guys, I'm here in Stevensville where we're at the first gas station that we've seen open all morning. We'll step outside because it's actually pretty windy, so we came inside to get away from it. But here in Stevensville, so far, there's no flooding to report yet, but of course, it's pretty windy out here, so of course, that's why we went inside. But live in Stevensville, Katie Easter, KGC TV3.
All right, well, with residents here without power, of course, will be restored. Curfew will be ending, and as you can see, the winds there are very, very strong, and it's advised to stay indoors, especially if you're over parts of St. Mary Parish.
Yeah, and I think we saw earlier today that the wind speeds are up to like 80 miles per hour in Morgan City.
You're going to see some gusts getting that high. At least that was what the forecast was showing, and of course, we'll check in with Daniel a little bit later on that.
All right, well, as we wait for Barry to officially make landfall, we want to keep you informed. Make sure your phones are charged. We will be updating you on what's happening through social media.
And you can watch us on our YouTube channel and on our website, katc.com. Be sure to download both the KATC News and the KATC Weather apps. Well, we've gotten several phone calls on how you can listen to us on the radio if you don't have a television or your phone might be dead and you can't charge it. We are streaming live on AM 960 KROF. You can catch us there when you can't catch us live.
And
hold on, we got something coming in from Daniel. If we can go check with Daniel real quick as we're looking there.
Yeah, just real quick. I was pulling up the Hurricane Hunter data here, and it looks like they may have found a wind speed of 76 miles an hour within the storm. That would put it at a Category 1 hurricane. So that kind of goes along that thinking of that we were expecting it to continue to intensify, and it looks like the winds have kind of picked up. Again, that's some of that data coming in from the Hurricane Hunter, which is flowing in right now. That's going to help out a lot of those models. That we didn't get any of that data coming in last night. They did not fly last night, so this is one of the first flights that we've seen come in. As it does so, that's going to help out the models greatly, but I did want to point that out, those wind speeds. It looks like they have found a spot with 76 miles an hour. Next advisory comes in probably about an hour and a half from now. I would imagine it's a Category 1 hurricane. Now, they may want to look and see if they can find a couple more spots with winds like that, and go ahead and bump it up. But like we said, we had always said that it was expected to intensify and go from 70 to 75 plus miles an hour, and it looks like it's done so. That changes nothing from what we've said. That doesn't change any of the impacts. All those impacts remain good. But I did want to point that out, that it looks like they have found Category 1 strength. Guys?
All right, thanks, Daniel. We'll wait to see if they do an official upgrade on that. A lot of times when hurricanes and tropical storms start to get a little bit closer to the coast, rather than having those updates at 7 and 10 and 1 and 4, they'll start to give you an hourly type of update. We haven't seen that come down. We didn't see it come down at the 8 o'clock, but you never know. We may get an update from the National Hurricane Center at 9 o'clock, and who knows, they may upgrade this to Hurricane Barry.
yeah, I know that we are, still kind of awaiting to hear more information, and this is a really slow storm that's pulling through to our area.
So updates coming up in just a little bit.
All right, and we also have a live look at in New Orleans. This is a shot of the lake shore near the Causeway Bridge. Some good news for the Crescent City. This morning, the Mississippi River is now projected to only make it to the minor flood stage, a little above 17 feet, much lower than earlier predicted.
And right now in Terrebonne Parish, a Coast Guard operation is underway to rescue 12 people trapped by floodwaters. According to WWL, those people are on the Ile de Jean Charles, about 45 minutes from Homa. An air rescue mission was scrapped earlier this morning as high winds made that flight impossible. Now, of course, most sandbag locations are closed as the storm inches closer. Here in Lafayette alone, the city parish government stocked 5 locations as people prepared for the storm. Here's Andrew Clay.
The city roughly estimates that around 100,000 bags of sand were collected this week in Lafayette. Now, around 6 o'clock tonight, hundreds of people were still preparing for a storm that presents the biggest flood threat since 2016. Scoop by scoop, bag by bag, Acadiana is preparing for the worst.
How many bags of sand you getting today? Lost count.
From St. Mary to Evangeline and here in Lafayette, people could see 20 inches of water. A similar rainfall to what fell in 2016. Storms that FEMA says caused more than $700 million in damage.
About almost 2 feet of water, give or take, inside the house. So at the street, it was almost up to my hip. It was a total gut job on my house.
Michael Reinberger has lived in Acadiana for nearly 40 years. He grabbed his own sandbags and helped others. He says he wants to be prepared this time.
I wasn't as anxious prior to 16, but, being one of those people that flooded, certainly understand the apprehension that some people have.
LCG estimates that it put down 100 dump trucks of sand this week. Reinberger far from the only one concerned this evening. Many still working to protect their homes and family.
My nephews, I don't want them to be stranded from this, lose everything. So I'm going to try and keep them safe.
It's in God's hands, hopefully he'll be gracious and, spare people.
Now in 2016, people saw as much as 30 inches of rain, more than the Barry models currently project. But as Rob has pointed out throughout the night, we could still see catastrophic flooding. For KATC TV3, I'm Andrew Clay.
All right, thanks, Andrew. We were talking about how a lot of people are in the path of Tropical Storm or what may become Hurricane Barry, and we all know you are armed with one of these.
Yeah, you're our eyes and ears for the hurricane and the weather conditions that's out. So we want you to send in your pictures or videos or whatever you may have during this weather event.
As long as you can safely do so, too, and you can put those on our Facebook page, Twitter, Instagram, or you can email them to news@katctv.com. And I do believe there's a way you can upload your pictures on the KATC app, news and weather app. You can download both of us by going to the iPhone App Store as well as the Android store, and you can find those downloads very easily. And with these things too, especially when there is the potential for some power outages out there, make sure you try to keep these charged. And if you do lose power, I know a really good way that to do that is you can charge it in your car.
Yeah.
And that'll get you juiced up a little bit there. But make sure you keep these handy because you'll get all the alerts that we have at KATC, and plus any other major alerts you've probably known in the past. Whenever we have a tornado warning or a flood warning, everybody's phones will go off here in the newsroom all in one shot. So this is an essential tool these days to keep you informed.
Yeah, and also follow our reporters who are out in the field keeping you informed. I know Chris Welty just posted a picture of some people in Baton Rouge. They're actually going for a walk right now during this weather. So, I mean, that's something that's going on. But try and follow all of us on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook, and we'll keep you informed on there.
Well, the Lamar Dixon Expo Center in Gonzales is now serving as a shelter, and that's where the Louisiana National Guard is, waiting for Barry to pass and ready to help with rescues. Last night, our Chris Welty caught up with them to learn about their plan.
As the sun sets on the Mississippi River, utility crews are moving to their staging areas across Baton Rouge. Further east on I-10, the Louisiana National Guard staging at the Lamar Dixon Expo Center, one of several areas where soldiers are preparing for Barry.
Well, we probably got over 200 people here right now, and it's mission dependent on wherever the storm goes, so we'll flex wherever they need us.
Sergeant Major Billy Meyer says here in Gonzales, more than 100 school buses are on standby to deploy should evacuations or rescues happen. Meyer says if needed, the buses will shuttle residents to one of several shelters in the state.
We did familiarization training on them. We checked them all out, got ready for our mission.
A mission Meyer says the Guard is ready to serve.
We'll hunker down with our soldiers, and as soon as it's safe to move about, then we're going to get out there and we're going to do what we got to do.
And while Myers is serving his state, his family back home in Eunice isn't far from his mind.
My wife and my family, I've been in over 30 years, so they're used to it, and every time they call, we go. So we do, here to protect and serve. Anything we can do to help citizens of Louisiana.
Well, in Franklin, the public is being asked to shelter in place and stay off roadways because of downed trees across the city. The wind gusts will become stronger throughout the day. Officials ask the public not to impede the flow of emergency personnel.
Well, over in Baton Rouge, I believe residents there are going to be bracing up for, they could see as much as 2 feet of rain. Okay, they're going to be seeing a lot of rain over there. Just to let you know, we have a lot of our crews over there. Chris Welty is over in Baton Rouge. We have reporters this morning over in Morgan City, as well as Jeanerette and down toward New Iberia. Also, Justice Henderson is here in Lafayette. And also wanted to bring to your attention, you may see a few unfamiliar faces that you have not seen on KATC, as KATC is part of a larger company called Scripps. And we have reporters and photographers and producers that have come in from all over the country, from West Palm Beach, Nashville, Tampa, Tulsa, and Waco. So we want to welcome them to Acadiana. If you are out and you see them and you've got some information, seek them out, talk to them, and let them know what you're seeing. And of course, make sure you download all of our apps and check out our social media pages. We'd love to see, if you can safely do so, get your pictures of any wind speeds, tree damage, or flooding that may be occurring across Acadiana.
And as we mentioned earlier, try and follow us on our Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram pages, and also the reporters that we mentioned that are coming in from across across the nation. They'll keep you updated on there as well. And
you were able to see some of the pictures there from Chris Welty,
yeah.
and he's over in Baton Rouge. You said people were going for a walk?
Yeah, he took pictures. There's one girl who was still keeping up with her morning routine of jogging. So I guess they're kind of just enjoying the calm before the storm.
And down to the south, we've seen some of the pictures coming in out of Morgan City as well as Jeanerette, where the winds have gotten considerably stronger. And we know that Daniel was talking about the Hurricane Reconnaissance aircraft are out there, and they're flying those low-level flights. And what they do is they go back and forth and back and forth. They not only try to find the center of circulation and try to measure the lowest pressure to give you an idea of what's going on, but they can also pick up on some of the winds, really by visual observation. They're low enough there that some of these guys can actually see the surface of the water, and by the white caps that are up there on the waves, they can actually estimate what those surface winds are. And there's a possibility we may be talking about winds in excess of 74 miles per hour now, which would make Barry a hurricane. We haven't got the official word from the National Hurricane Center, but as tropical systems start to move a little bit closer to the coastline, rather than getting these updates every 3 hours, they tend to give us every hour or every 2 hours. So we're probably going to wait and see what happens around the 9 o'clock time period, where there's a possibility we could see Barry upgraded. That is not anything that's happened just yet, but we're waiting to see. Daniel?
Yeah, I'm waiting to see too. Can we pull up the visible satellite? Because it looks like the center may even, Dave, take a look at this. I want to get your opinion on this. It looks like the center may have even pushed northwards up along the coast, which would be landfall anyway. You can see right here.
You can see outside too.
Yeah. You can see a little bit of a swirl right here.
Well, yesterday they had some vorticities that were kind of wrapping around the outside of this because it was such a broad area of circulation there. But we saw one of those that kind of came uncovered from the main convection, and there were some folks on social media yesterday where they were saying, "Oh, look, it's making landfall over Terrebonne Parish," but it was just kind of a little vort that was kind of rotating around the main area of low pressure. And because it's kind of disorganized and you've got that shear on the top, it might be one of those, but it's a pretty broad area of low pressure. I was kind of watching the radar too, and you kind of see how things are rotating on there as well.
Because we haven't seen the National Hurricane Center, they usually will put a bulletin down after something like that happens and says such and such has made landfall exactly this time at this place. And we haven't seen that back here, and I kept checking for it, but I was watching the satellite here. That looks like that may be the case. But it does kind of go to that point, though. All the rainfall is back here and then to the east side. I mean, you have almost a hurricane, if not a hurricane, making landfall in Louisiana. And there is not actually a lot of rainfall in Louisiana right now. Now, we just heard the wind pick up. We talked about Barry being a rainmaker. That still is going to be the case. You can see all of that convection back here on the back side of that. And
if you look where the purple winds are, that's where the strongest is.
Right.
And that's where the hurricane hunters are picking up the 76-mile-an-hour winds, which are still well offshore, but that is displaced from the center.
Yeah. So it's just, I think it just kind of goes to this. It's a very messy storm, and this whole thing may not behave the way a regular hurricane or a regular tropical storm would behave, just because it is so lopsided and there is so much rain on the east. And so far the heaviest showers we've seen have actually been out over towards Mobile and the Pascagoula area there along the border, and that's even stretched out close to Pensacola. For Louisiana, we haven't seen too much rainfall. Now, that being said, there's still plenty of rain on the way. You can see pretty clearly there with the visible satellite. And then if we switch this over and we just take a look at the water vapor real quick, and we can get back to news. I'm sorry I interrupted you guys. I wanted to point that out because it was really interesting looking to me. I wanted to get your eyes on it. But you can see too here that there's just so much moisture back on the back end of this thing. We actually have the dry air right here, which we kind of talked about, trying to work its way in, but it looks like it's fairly well insulated off from where the strongest convection is going to be and where the deepest moisture is going to be. So basically, I think the point from all of this, and the point that's kind of taking me forever to get to, is that this thing is not going to behave the way a usual tropical storm or a usual hurricane, if there is such a thing, would behave. This is a really, really sloppy type system. It's slow moving. We've talked about that as well, and I think that as we move forward through the day today, going on into tomorrow, that this is going to be the type of thing that we just talk about basically for the rest of the weekend. And again, I'll pull that visible satellite back up here and give you guys a look. Kind of what sparked my interest here was it looks like there's some kind of swirl, and I'll manipulate the camera a little bit so we can get kind of a better look. And meteorologists at home or weather enthusiasts at home can kind of follow along my little thought process here. But it looks like there may be some kind of swirl or something that was coming into Lafayette. And kind of right as I noticed that, we felt a pretty big gust of wind. So I think you're probably going to see the wind start to pick up here a little bit. And then certainly the stuff back on the strong end. That's where all the action's going to be. That's where all the problems are going to be as well, back on the south side. So with this storm, we usually make a lot about landfall. Where is it making land? When is it making landfall? And all of that. And typically that is the worst part of the storm, and that's when it's the strongest. That's when it's going to be the worst. But I think with a storm like this, there's going to be less of a focus about exactly where and when this thing makes landfall, and then it's going to become, where do these showers start coming onshore? Where do we start seeing that convection? Is it going to wrap around and go up east of the basin this way? If this low comes up, for example, if this low now starts to drift up this way, maybe a little bit west of Alexandria, that can pull those showers back into our area as well. So a really kind of tough storm, and a really interesting storm to try and wrap your head around. Again, there's nothing going on the north end of it because of all that dry air, which makes this increasingly difficult to try and figure out exactly what this is going to do. But I did want to point that out. We don't have a traditional type of system with us. This is a little bit different than the type of stuff we're used to seeing. While I have you guys here, I think I'll go ahead and pull up the radar. We can take a look at what we're seeing on the radar as well, and give Dave and Kendria a chance to catch their breath. Here's a look at the radar. You can see the showers coming on shore now with a little more regularity. They are sitting just offshore, and like I said, you've got a hurricane, a possible hurricane, if not a hurricane, knocking on the doorstep of Louisiana. But when it comes to the shower activity, you don't actually see a whole lot. Some out over towards New Orleans. You've got showers in Morgan City. And when I talk about that, it's been misty here in Lafayette, and there's a lot of places where it's been very misty and wet. It's certainly not a pleasant day outside. And I think the big heavy showers so far, the worst of it you've seen has been out over towards the east. That's Mobile, Dauphin Island, out over towards Biloxi. Now, I do think it's going to pick up. You can see all of that weather there. And I know here it looks like it's a little bit better. The problem is that where this radar is shooting, and this is coming in from Slidell, those radar beams can't actually get through all of the weather, so it registers this as much lighter rainfall. But this is going to be a wall of heavy water here and very heavy rain that stretches all the way back out into the Gulf of Mexico as well. So I'm going to go back. I'm going to keep working on a little bit of analysis here, and we'll see if we can get the latest from the National Hurricane Center. Again, it'll be pretty telling. If they come out with a bulletin at 9 o'clock, I bet that what they would be saying is that it A is a hurricane or B has already made landfall, and we'll see where they go from there. Again, the point to remember though, tropical storm, hurricane, none of that really matters. Landfall, not hugely important. What is important is that we're going to get a ton of rain on the back end of this system, and winds are going to be picking up as we go through the day. Okay.
All right, thanks, Daniel. 8:40 is your time. Bill Oliver here from DOTD. And how are things looking out there so far?
Well, actually, it's fairly calm. We have a few limbs have come down, but the roads are dry. We haven't got any significant rain yet. So right now we're in preparation mode. We have one bridge at Humboldt Canal down there that we had to open to marine traffic because the tide's going to inundate the bridge, and we won't be able to operate it. So that's a precautionary measure we take. And we also have the old LA 182 bridge at Berwick, between Berwick and Morgan City. We're going to close that bridge. Somebody ran into the headache rack that protects the bridge from overhigh loads. So the conditions are too severe for us to do repair work right now. So we're gonna go ahead and close that bridge. Precautionary measure to protect the bridge so we don't damage the bridge.
What has DOTD been doing over the last several days to prepare for Tropical Storm or possibly Hurricane Barry?
So what we've been doing is getting all of our equipment and personnel ready, getting all of our fuel topped off, equipment in place, pumps. We have extra pumps, signs, barricades, those kind of things, and getting everybody prepared to immediately get out on the road as soon as this storm is over, so we can clear the road and start taking measures to get everybody back in, get emergency vehicles in place, and everybody out there, and support evacuation services.
Now, you were talking about the buses that are staged across Acadiana. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Okay, so this is the first time we activate the bus contract in this district for Lafayette. So we have 80 coach buses and 60 school buses we put in place. We have them staged at the Lafayette Airport and the Broussard Sports Complex. And those are ready to go out to the parishes to start evacuating. We've sent out 6 buses so far, 3 to Franklin and 3 to Patterson, and that's in case they needed to evacuate some people down there. But we're ready when the water starts coming up to support the wildlife fisheries, and local emergency operations people are going to bring people in these flooded areas, and we'll be sending buses out to get those people out of the area.
What are you telling motorists across Acadiana, or across the state for that matter?
So what we're telling people is right now you need a shelter in place, so stay off the roads. It's time to prepare to be where you're going to be. Try to stay off the roads. If you have to get out, then try to stay on a road that's dry. Do not go in high water. If you see standing water, you need to turn around, go somewhere else, because you don't know how deep it is, you don't know how it's moving, and you don't know what the condition of that roadway is under the water. So
yeah, because sometimes when you get a lot of water like that, it can compromise what's actually under the pavement, and you may not know that part of that roadway is actually gone.
That's right. I mean, you don't know the conditions in that thing. Under these kind of severe conditions, the water can come up really fast. That water can be moving extremely fast. The roadway could be undermined. You could have holes, and you could be swept right off the road, and next you know, you're in much deeper water.
And then sometimes, you know, you were talking about how you've come in from outside and you said the winds are relatively calm. We get some decent gusts and some breezes too. But when you start to get out toward the coastal areas, especially when you get over those intracoastal bridges that are considerably higher, you can have some serious wind up there.
That's right. I mean, it can get very severe. The wind's picking up on the coast. We're expecting to see inundation of the coastal roads sometime this morning. And if you get up on those bridges, you can get into some severe wind issues, and that can be very dangerous.
If anybody needs the latest road conditions, where can they go?
They should go to 511la.org and look for the list. We'll have closures out. You can also go to our website and go through the steps to sign up for My DOTD. If you want to see road conditions in your area, your parish, it will email you those road conditions or text them or.
You guys have an app too?
Yes, we have an app. You can download. I'm trying to remember.
I think it's the 511 app.
But it's a 511. It's tied to the 511 system, and it will give you the same information as the 511 system, but it'll give it to you through the app, and you can actually use it to travel and give you real-time data.
Bill Oliver, thanks for coming in this morning and talking with us to let us know what was going on. Again, as he is saying, stay off the roads if you don't need to be out there, and do not drive through flooded roads as well. And of course, we're going to bring you the list of road closures. They're going to help us update that list of road closures as we go through time. All right, so as we look at Sarah Hollenbeck, she's with WFTS, one of our Tampa stations. We're going to go to her live right now. She's reporting from New Iberia. Good morning.
We're in New Iberia Park, and we are really starting to feel the outer bands of Tropical Storm Barry. All of a sudden, we will feel these really big gusts of wind that seem to come out of nowhere. Just a little bit of rain, though, at this moment. And we're just now hearing that there is a command post that's been set up for search and rescue not far from here in Iberia Parish. That's just off of Highway 14. Now, let me step out and show you what we've got behind us. This is the Army National Guard. The Louisiana National Guard has activated about 3,000 soldiers and airmen so far ahead of Tropical Storm Barry's landfall. We also know that they've had these high water vehicles and boats staged. They're actually in 20 different communities across this state right now, including right here in New Iberia Park. Helicopters are also on standby, just waiting. Of course, the big concern is going to be the flood water later today. This is such a slow-moving hurricane that the sheriff here in Iberia Parish is telling me that that is going to be the big concern because it will be over our area for such an extended period of time. It could dump a lot of rainwater as well as storm surge in our area. That's why the National Guardsmen are here in New Iberia Park, ready to go at a moment's notice if we do have a lot of rainfall as this tropical storm gets closer to our area. Back to you guys in the studio.
And that's right, we are in St. Martin Parish, just off I-10 and Rees Street. I want to give you a look at what we are seeing out here. The rain has luckily let off for the time being, but we have been out on the roads all morning where we have been seeing a few branches and some small trees down, nothing too significant. We have been talking to the Louisiana State Police Trooper Thomas Gusts, and he's been giving us an update about what's really been happening around the parish. And he tells us that there are some downed power lines being reported in Morgan City, and of course some trees as well. Of course, he is warning everybody not to cross those downed power lines. Of course, they still could be live. And so he is telling everyone to just stay safe out there and really get back and stay in your homes if you can. It really, as the conditions start to get worse and worse throughout the morning, the trooper says it is not going to be safe to be out here. But as of right now, things are looking all right. Wind is picking up as conditions start to slowly deteriorate out here. For now, we are live in St. Martin Parish. Jason Lamb, KATC TV3.
And we want to thank Jason there. He is from our affiliate WTVF, which is over in Nashville. We just got some word that the folks down in Terrebonne Parish at Ile de Jean Charles, there are about 20 people who are needing to be rescued in that particular area. And earlier today, they were going to try to get a flight out there to try to help get them out. And they weren't able to fly out there because the wind speeds were just way too strong. But we are getting a report just into our newsroom that all of those folks down there have been rescued. So they're going to be evacuated from that particular area. The Coast Guard helping out with that. And the initial report, there were about 12 people in distress due to flooding in that residential area. Coast Guard Marine Safety units were trying to launch a boat to get out there. There were some gusty winds. The air crew was able to hoist 4 people in their Katc, took them to Ahoma Airport. Hurricanes and tropical storms, of course, are deadly, and the Coast Guard's ability to conduct research continues to diminish as the storm will be approaching landfall. And they may be non-existent during the height of the storm, and the public needs to stay prepared. If you get in there and you haven't evacuated and you do get in trouble, there's going to be a period of time where the winds and the water, it's going to be a little bit too rough for those folks to do any rescues, so you will have to shelter in place and stay put. We do want to go over to meteorologist Daniel Phillips. He's got some updates for us with some new wind speeds.
Yeah, we're still waiting on word for the National Hurricane Center. They have not come out and said that there was or has been a landfall. That is the kind of thing that we are looking for now. We're coming up at the top of the hour now. Sometimes they start putting out those advisories every hour as opposed to every 3. But we're getting really, really close now. But as we mentioned, we spent a long time with the satellite. Everything is kind of built in on the south side of the storm, and on the east side, you've got almost hurricane sitting directly offshore, and you don't have a whole lot of rain across Louisiana right now. And again, a lot of that has to do with just the structure of the storm. We went through that a lot about how everything is built in on the south side and the east side. Now, that does not take away any of the threats or the impacts. And even when we said that, maybe if it has made landfall, that doesn't change really anything here because the impacts have stayed the same and they've stayed pretty consistent. We talked a lot about rain a little bit earlier on, and we're going to get back to rainfall here a little later. Let's talk about winds though, because the winds are also going to be a major threat. You got power outages that are down through Morgan City right now, and as well as some power lines that are going to be down, and you're going to see those types of wind spread their way out across Acadiana. We had a pretty big wind gust here just a little while ago. So expect these winds to pick up across the region. This model actually picks it up right around 12 o'clock. So we're coming up about 3 hours away from that now. And that would be widespread winds sitting at about 60 to 70 miles an hour across a large portion of Acadiana, certainly a large portion of the Acadiana coastline, especially east of that center, which again is sitting just directly south of Vermillion Bay right now. Everything to the east of it, more or less going to be seeing those very, very high winds. You've got tropical storm force winds 35 miles an hour plus. So you're probably talking 40 to 60 spreading out through this yellow region here. That's going to be the yellow shaded area. And watch how this migrates as we go through the day. It is not going to be over fairly quickly. 5 o'clock in the evening, we are a long way from that. You know, we're coming up at 9 a.m. And you still have that 60, 70 mile an hour stretch of wind that stretches from Lafayette all the way through St. Martin Parish, getting up even into the Opelousas area as well. That is going to be out through Abbeville. It's going to be Delcombe. Kaplan is going to be included in that 60, 70 mile an hour stretch of wind. You may get gusts that are a little bit higher than that. So near hurricane type conditions all the way through into northern parts of Acadiana. By the evening, you will see that wind field spread, that 40 to 60 mile an hour wind field. That will spread from Ville Platte up through northern parts of St. Landry Parish, getting over into Evangeline as well. And then it continues. We continue to see it move northwards all the way through the night. This is 11 o'clock at night. We still then have those tropical storm force winds. So to reiterate, this is going to go on all day long. This is going to go well through the day today. It is going to go well through the night and into tomorrow. Eventually, once these winds start to die down, this is going to go from that wind threat to more of that flooding threat. We've talked about that at length here over the last couple of days. As these winds do start to pick up, remember, we've got a lot of vegetation growth. We haven't had a storm like this in a while, so we've got a lot of old trees. We've got a lot of sick trees that are out there that aren't going to be able to take these winds. Please pay attention to the vegetation out there. Be aware of debris that's flying around as well. And then once these winds start to pick up and once they start to blow around like this, stay away from the windows. We talk about it during severe thunderstorms. Tropical storm is no different. There is debris out there. We heard there's already a few branches that are flying around, small right now, but as the winds pick up, they'll get bigger and bigger. Stay away from those windows as things do start to blow through. You never know what is going to make its way through your window, and you just want to make sure that you stay as safe as possible. Eventually, the winds are going to slowly ease up as we get into tomorrow, and that storm works its way towards the north. Unfortunately, it looks like that's when the rainfall is really going to be kicking in. I collected a list. This is so far a look at some of the highest reported wind gusts that we've had with Tropical Storm Barry so far. Burns Point, that's out through St. Mary Parish. That's going to be right on the coastline there. They've reported wind gusts up to about 81 miles an hour. Most of the places kind of come mid-60s to upper 50s. You've got Patterson at about 56. Homa's reported 58 so far. Port Fourchon at about 62, 64 out over through Delac, and 81 out over towards Burns Point. So the winds are out there and they are coming. They're mostly down along the coastline right now, but they are going to spread out. And we're going to see a lot of these types of wind gusts as well. They will start to migrate their way northwards as we make our way through the remainder of the day. It's almost a certainty at this point. I think you can say pretty safely that we are going to see tropical storm force winds. Those are winds greater than 35 miles an hour. In some cases, we've already seen that as this storm works its way northwards. Hurricane force winds, that probability goes down just a little bit, 20-30% even, but that's still pretty high for the types of winds that we're talking about. That's 75 miles an hour plus. That's gusting up to about 85 miles an hour. That's some very, very strong wind. And again, wind damage is going to be possible. Your phone, any kind of laptop that has a charge, will be able to pull us up through there. So if the power goes out, you lose your television capabilities or the way that you receive messages, don't panic. This is the information age. There is always going to be another gadget or device that you can get that information on, and we are on every single one of them, and we will be through the rest of the day today, overnight tonight, and likely well into tomorrow as well. Let's pick things up at about 10 o'clock. So this is coming up within the next couple of hours or so, or hour at least. You can see those wind gusts, those ones that we were talking about that was out over through Burns Point earlier, spreading out. Mid-80 wind gusts. That comes along with that hurricane as it works its way northwards. You've got the heavy winds that are going to be out over through Baton Rouge all the way along I-10. That's going to make travel very, very difficult. Again, as we've said, we urge you all to stay in. Before the rain gets there and before those waters flood, it's going to be some very gusty winds that's going to be blowing things around. Now remember, these are wind gusts, but they're going to be sustained at some pretty high levels as well all the way through the afternoon. This takes us on into Saturday afternoon. Later on today, it starts to spread northwards as high as Marksville, Simmsport. You can see 50 to 60 mile an hour wind gusts as this thing works its way northwards. And then I do want to point out, look at the wind particles. They are going to consistently be out of the south all day long. All that water that is building up out through St. Mary Parish right now down along the coastline, that's not going to be going anywhere. That's going to pile up. There's going to be a lot of saltwater inundation up along these marshes. You're talking 5 to 6 feet worth of storm surge. I think getting as high as about 8 feet in some places, a little bit closer to the center, or where you funnel some of that water in. The Gulf of Mexico holds a lot more water than the Vermilion Bay does, and a lot of that water is getting pushed up into the Vermilion Bay. There's nowhere for it to go except for the shoreline. That's why that storm surge is going to come up. Then you've got to take the storm storm surge. And on top of that, you've also got to add the waves that come crashing in as well. So we've been saying that 3 to 6 foot range. I think you could see 6 foot out over close towards Baldwin, maybe right around the Morgan City levees there, and then down over through the marshes. Does look a little bit better out over through Cameron. They also had the benefit of having the northerly flow, which is actually going to help kind of push some of that water offshore again. But if you live along Vermillion Bay or you have interest along Vermillion Bay, I think this is the type of inundation that you are looking for, getting as high as about 6 feet in some areas. Remember that this is also going to come up along the bayous and the rivers as well. Once that water starts pushing up, you're going to see those numbers on the Vermilion going up a little bit. But again, the Vermilion has been really, really low so far today, which is some good news because we do have a bit of rain that is coming. We've got to look at your timelines here. This is what we're going to be dealing with. We've got those timelines that are sitting. Bumped a lot of them up. We're moving through Saturday morning now. We've got the storm surge that is coming up just a little bit. We're sitting at about 3 to 6 feet on the day. We've had reports that are close to about 6 feet down over towards Burns Point. I think we're a little ways away from the flooding rain. I think that arrives a little bit more this afternoon. And quick mention of the rain. Now, we went at length at that right around the top of the hour, but if you missed that, this is kind of what we're dealing with. We are dealing with somewhere around 6 to 12 inches worth of rainfall area-wide across Acadiana. The worst of it is going to be 15 to 25, and that's going to be the major type of damage, the major flooding that we've been expecting with this system. We still do not know exactly where that's going to be. I had some people asking if we could pull up the latest Euro. Unfortunately, the Euro comes in every 12 hours. The other problem is without the hurricane hunter data that we are just now starting to get, some of those short-range models kind of been going back and forth a lot all morning long. So they lean one way, 1 minute, they lean another way, the next minute, 1 minute they're dry, 1 minute they're soaked. They're everywhere. Now we know that it's going to produce a ton of that water, and so once we start to see it set up, we can get a much, much better idea of where it's going to be. We're still looking for a little consistency from the Euro as well, which had the big scare yesterday afternoon when it brought everything west. This morning kind of drifted it back east. Those are the types of things that we're dealing with. So we know that the water's coming. We're just trying to figure out exactly where it's going to be. Those are going to be the things that you need to watch out for as you go through the rest of the day. Winds are going to continue to pick up as we go through the rest of the morning here, especially as we get into the afternoon. Barrie is moving incredibly slow. And then once we do start to get those rain bands to swing through, which again, we have avoided largely so far, then we will start to talk the severe threat as well. I think that severe threat will actually probably build back a little bit later on into the day. Guys?
Thanks, Daniel. Well, in Franklin, the public is being asked to shelter in place and stay off the roadways because of downed trees across the city. They say wind gusts will become stronger throughout the day. So once again, everyone in Franklin is asked to stay indoors and off the roadways.
Over in New Orleans, questions remain about whether the levees there will withstand another test. ABC's Rob Marciano is right there in New Orleans.
Barrie lumbering its way to land in Louisiana.
Oh, yeah, that don't look good.
Overnight streets in Grand Isle overtaken by running rapids. Barrie's wrath already knocking out power for thousands on the island. The storm packing winds over 60 miles per hour, violently swinging benches in the air, shaking street signs and battering traffic lights.
Bottom line is stay off the street.
Its strength felt all the way to Alabama Friday. The Coast Guard warning residents ahead of the storm after rescuing 5 people from their disabled boat in the Gulf. And on the ground, 3,000 National Guards standing at the ready. In the air, Air Force hurricane hunters tracking the storm. Close to 10,000 people in exposed areas along the Gulf told to leave. In New Orleans, residents are urged to shelter in place. Tourists are pulling out of town.
Have you ever been through a hurricane?
Yes, you go. I'm from Charleston.
Okay. You don't have any feeling about sticking around this?
No. When they say evacuate, you usually pretty much listen to that warning, and you get out.
And so are the Rolling Stones, the band postponing their show in New Orleans until Monday. And for the first time in history, all the city's floodgates are closed.
But I've never seen them close off the river like the barricades.
Those floodgates are the first time.
Heavy rain expected to fill low-lying areas. Jefferson Parish boasting a pumping capacity that could fill the Superdome in just 41 minutes.
We're very confident in the entire system's ability to withstand what Tropical Storm Barrie may bring us.
But the mayor of Morgan City telling ABC News he's worried about Barrie's rainfall exceeding his city's pumping capacity.
And that's what concerns us, not the wind, not the storm surge, but we don't have the pumping capacity to handle 20 inches of rain if it comes at one time.
And all flights to and from New Orleans International Airport have been canceled for today. According to the airport website, all airlines have canceled flight in and out. Some airlines are offering flights out of other airports. If you have a ticket, the airport advises that you contact your airline for more information.
And some flights have been canceled at the Lafayette Regional Airport, but most are still scheduled. The airport has announced it will stay open, but officials are advising travelers to check with their airlines about delays or cancellations. You can also check the airport's website to see the status of your flight. There are still schedules to fly today. And now we're going to Chris Welty. He's in Baton Rouge. And Chris, what are you seeing right now?
Hey guys, it's still pretty quiet here in Baton Rouge. It actually appears that the sun might be trying to peek through some of the cloud cover, but I'm going to step out of frame. I want you to take a look at the Mississippi River Bridge, and this might be the easiest commute right now for anyone trying to travel through Baton Rouge. A lot of people, Governor John Bel Edwards warning to stay off the roads and avoid unnecessary travel. The governor also saying everything about this storm is a little different than what we typically deal with, and he's still urging Louisiana residents to take this storm very seriously. Now, earlier I was checking Twitter and I saw Mike the Tiger tweeted, and he says that he has extra snacks and he's staying in his night house until the storm passes. Of course, right now we're in downtown Baton Rouge, not too far from the LSU campus, and along the Riverwalk you might be able to see some of the people still out here just doing their normal morning routine, getting their exercise in, and we've seen a lot of people also just checking out the Mississippi River, taking photos, and just seeing exactly what the Mississippi River is doing. But as of right now, things are quite calm here in Baton Rouge. Occasionally we do get some strong gusts, but we haven't seen any of those sustained winds yet. Guys, back to you.
All right, thanks, Chris Welty. He is live over in Baton Rouge. Well, trees are down in Baldwin, this one blocking a road. Baldwin volunteer firefighters posted this picture of a tree blocking an orphan home road near its intersection with Railroad Avenue. And we've gotten several calls on how you can listen to us on the radio if you don't have a television or your phone may be dead and you can't charge it. We are streaming, and our audio signal is going out on KROF. That's AM 960. You can catch us there when you can't catch us live. All right, we're going to go ahead and go back over to meteorologist Daniel Phillips. We were talking about checking out some of the hurricane reconnaissance data, and as you were saying, they may have found some hurricane force winds yet, but unofficially we don't have a hurricane. Well, unofficially we have a hurricane, but it's still officially a tropical storm.
Yeah, and this is, there comes a time with some of these things where sometimes the tediousness of science runs into the tediousness of bureaucracy, and that is usually with the National Hurricane Center and the Weather Service and stuff. And those guys are amazing and they're working incredibly hard, but until they come down and say they're kind of the authority on that. And we did find some winds that would indicate that it's probably a Category 1 storm. We're waiting on it. They didn't put out a 9 o'clock bulletin. They updated some of their watches and warnings, or at least came out with an announcement that said no update, but I haven't seen anything else from that at all. We're still going with the 7 o'clock, so I guess we got an hour to go. So keeping an eye on the river levels right now, and watching some of that rainfall as it does start to work its way in. Again, it's been a super weird storm. It's not behaving the way a traditional storm like this would. We've got a lot of rain leading out ahead of it because we were trying to figure out whether or not we saw it make landfall or not. But everything is kind of built in on the back end of things. So this is going to go on all day. Just looking at the radar, and even if you glance and go a little bit offshore, you can see how much rainfall is out there, and it is going to be coming as well. So while it hasn't really got going yet, and the heaviest showers around over towards the east, that does not necessarily mean that it's not on the way. We're certainly going to be seeing a lot of that rainfall coming up. One of the things that we are keeping a pretty close eye on is some of the river data that's coming in, and it looks like the Mississippi River out over towards Baton Rouge, that is still expected to come in fairly high. That's been at a major flood stage basically through the entirety of the spring and summer, and it looks like that's going to continue. The Vermillion looks like it's going to crest, at least according to this forecast, looks like it's going to crest somewhere at about 15 feet. That would put it about 2 feet lower than where it was in 2016. Now, these forecasts change a lot. These river forecasts are usually pretty susceptible to seeing pretty wide swings from one way to the other. So something to just keep an eye on, but at least it's not coming in much higher than where it is right now. We've actually seen that river level kind of fall a little bit as we've gone through the morning. It's been down to about 3.6 at times today. I've been monitoring a lot of the social media chatter to also see what other meteorologists are seeing out there. We talk. We all talk all the time. Meteorologists do anyway, and there's a pretty good network in trying to see what they're thinking, and a lot of people also trying to figure out whether or not this thing has made landfall. There's a lot of discussion on that. A lot of people keeping an eye on some of the rivers, especially out over towards Baton Rouge, where they may be braced to take on some of that higher rainfall. When we were talking rainfall amounts, and I can pull that up since we missed that on the last go around. This is the European model when it comes to the rain, and it's what we've based a lot of our activity on. That's kind of pinpointed where some of the heavier swaths were out maybe towards the Baton Rouge area. But still, we're kind of in the middle of that. Anyway, the places that catch this amount of rain, not only is that going to lead to some big-time street flooding because of the way that the rainfall comes down, but any kind of rivers or tributaries or bayous, creeks, anything that is in the way of that is going to immediately fill up with water, and you're going to see that those water levels really start coming up. And one of the things to keep in mind as this gets going, we could see this rain coming well through the night, and that could mean night rescues, night evacuations, people trying to go to sleep. It's been an exhausting day for certainly all of us here, and I know many of you at home have been under a tremendous amount of stress with this system and trying to keep up and everything that it's doing. And it looks like we're just going to have to keep the endurance going. Try not to burn yourself out because we got to go all the way through the night with this. And we're probably going to have to go all the way through into tomorrow morning, maybe even tomorrow afternoon, if some of these models are to be believed, because it's been such a slow-moving storm. It kind of brings me up to this other point that I started talking about. At some point in time during this cut-in, time kind of blends together in these things. But anyway, we watch and we constantly need as much information as we can. We live in the information age. We're on Twitter and Facebook and television and radio and internet, and everyone has a different opinion on what's going to happen. Everyone has a different forecast, a different take on the forecast. That all of that information sometimes can seem overwhelming. So these storms can produce a huge amount of stress to anyone who owns a home, anyone who has family in any of these areas. This thing can really kind of work with you, not just in a physical sense. If the power goes out, you have the heat that you have to deal with. When the winds start going, it's loud. It's this constant bombardment, and that kind of gets into your mental health as well. And so I would urge a lot of you as you watch this coverage, and a lot of times you can't look away because you don't want to miss anything. The way this thing is moving right now, there are times where you may just feel the need to step away from it, to just kind of take a moment and kind of forget about it as best as you can for a little bit, and that will help you kind of keep that endurance going. You have to think about your mental health as well as your physical health and all of that. And I think sometimes you can get caught up in a lot of this coverage, especially if you start seeking out sensationalized coverage as well, and you start flipping channels and you start seeing reporters really blown all over the place in places that don't really affect you. So try and keep it as local as possible. And if you need to step away from the coverage, that's certainly okay to do so. We talk a lot about how you got to stay on top of the forecast and you got to do all of this. You're going to be able to get that information at any point in time you want. But it's very, very important that sometimes you just kind of step away and take a break, because that can help relieve some of that stress. And I would urge that if you've been watching this for hours and hours and hours, now may be a good time to do so. Of course, as things change, we'll be back on. We'll keep talking to you guys and keep bringing you guys through it. And so those would be my words of advice, that to make sure that you take care of yourselves during this thing. We got a long way to go. This is not going to be over in a couple hours. We got to go all the way through the night with this, and you don't want to get burned out before 10 o'clock in the morning comes around. So just some words of advice there. We'll get back to some analysis. We'll try and figure out this tropical storm hurricane thing and see what the NHC has to say. Guys.
All right, thanks, Daniel. We need to head now to Jeanerette, and that's where we find our Chris DeMera, who is live this morning from Iberia Parish. Good morning, Chris.
Now, the rain and wind here in Jeanerette has gotten a little more consistent. It's gotten actually a constant just waves of rain coming in as we're kind of just waiting for the wind to pick up, the rain to pick up, and these emergency crews to hit the road. And so you see the two boats behind me are gone. There are actually a few calls going out right now for trees down and people needing assistance. There was a tree on a trailer. There was a tree blocking a driveway of people that needed to get out. And so those are the calls that are going on right now. But actually, we stayed here last night with emergency crews, and it was kind of a hectic night for them. It was an anxious night for them. Not a whole lot of sleep was gotten because these guys they're listening to their meteorologists, they're getting the latest weather reports, and they're also communicating with police and marshals that are going down this road. There were a couple marshals that were on quads that were patrolling these roads, making sure people were obeying the curfew. They actually came in to check on us last night. It was really nice of them. And so police and marshals checking these areas, making sure people are obeying their curfews here in Jeanerette. And they're probably going to be out and about all day. We have our crews out and about all day. We have some staying here getting ready for any rescues that need to be made. So they're on standby, ready to go. And then others cutting up trees, helping people get out of their homes, get on the road. People that have stayed, that we talked about yesterday, who do want to leave now, who saw the wind and the rain coming in, say, hey, it's time to get to higher ground. So we'll continue to keep you updated as the calls continue to come in. We expect them to get a little more than just trees down as the wind comes in. We're not hoping that's the case, but these crews and we are on standby just in case that is the case. Until then, we'll send it back into you guys.
All right, thanks. That's Chris DeMaria, who is reporting live from Jeanerette. Chris, by the way, if you don't recognize him, he is from one of our sister stations, KJRH in Tulsa. Well, Barry is expecting to bring a lot of rain to the area, and it's expected to drop plenty of water in just a very short period of time. Of course, that could lead to some flooded streets. This video was taken Friday from Golden Meadow. And remember, you don't want to drive through those streets with water rushing over it. It can hide dips, debris, and roads that could possibly have been washed away entirely. Also, 6 inches of water is ample to hit the bottom of most passenger cars, flooding and leaving the exhaust covered and leaving you immobile. Just 1 foot of water can cause most cars to float. You can't walk through water, especially moving water. Don't attempt to drive across it. Down power lines and debris can easily harm you. And of course, wet roads can lead to deadly accidents from hydroplaning.
Well, in Baton Rouge, residents there are bracing for up to 2 feet of rain. It's where we find ABC's Alex Perez.
The torrential rains and floods of 2016 are still fresh on the minds of a lot of people here in Baton Rouge. I want you to take a look behind me here. You can see this tree. The wind is already picking up here. This is the Mississippi River. A lot of people here have spent the week sandbagging, trying to do whatever they can to protect their homes. They are bracing, as you said, for about 2 feet of rain. And the problem here is going to be the same problem across the state this weekend, that this storm is going to linger and basically dump rain the entire weekend. Now, a lot of people here remember when the streets looked like rivers. They are anxious. They remember their homes being destroyed. They are ready for Barry to move on out of here.
Well, and you know, a lot of 2016 flood, of course, is fresh on a lot of folks' mind. We were talking about how the Vermillion River right now is actually very low. They were reducing the water that was flowing in from Bayou Catawba, and then on top of that, you've got those stiff northerly winds that are helping to lower the tides, although those winds are now starting to shift more to the south and to the east. So we're probably going to see local rivers as well as the Vermillion River starting to come up. Daniel was pointing out earlier that the river is expected to go up to about that 15 to 16 foot range, which is below what we saw in 2016. In 2016, it crested at 17.62, and it ended up staying there for quite some time. You might remember just a few weeks ago when we had some tremendous street flooding. That was earlier in June. We were able to get that river to go up to about 15.5 feet in a very short period of time, and then it relaxed back down below flood stage, which, by the way, is 10 feet. So right now, we're not expecting at least the Vermillion River to have the water amounts that we saw back in 2016. But looking at some of those forecasts that we have there's probably going to be some areas that are going to pick up 10 to 20 inches of rain. And here in Lafayette, officially at the Lafayette Regional Airport, we had one day where we had 10 inches of rain, and then the second day we had 10 inches of rain for a total of 20 over 2 days. Some of those forecasts that we've seen from Daniel are going anywhere between 6 and 12 for most of the Acadiana area, but some of those regions could pick up over 20 inches of rain over about a 2 to 3 day period. That can be dangerous.
And you had mentioned earlier about the 2016 historic flood. That's still fresh on a lot of people's minds. This is something that we could possibly see again, like that type of flooding?
Depends on where you are. It could be isolated. I mean, just about anywhere, if you get 20 inches of rain, storm drains, the ground really can't handle that, and you're going to have some issues. So at least at this time, our local river, the Vermillion River, and many of them that are from Lafayette westward are actually way below where they should be. Now, the Mississippi River is a little bit of a different story over toward Baton Rouge, going down toward New Orleans, and then eventually out into Plaquemines Parish. And I know farther south of New Orleans downriver, they did have some evacuations that they were doing for the levee system down there because the water is so high, and then you put on top of that a storm surge and a tremendous amount of rain, so it's kind of a triple threat there. Did want to remind our viewers that if you lose electricity or perhaps that you can't charge your phone, you got a battery operated radio. We are broadcasting our audio signal on 960 AM. That is KROF. That is part of our radio media partners, Town Square Media. They're right across the street here from KATC. Well, right now we only have one road closure to tell you about. Vermillion Parish, the pontoon bridge at Humble Canal on LA 3147 at Freshwater City is closed as the storm surge starts to come in. Officials say that bridge will remain closed until after the storm has passed.
Thousands across the state are in the dark this morning. More than 50,000 Entergy customers are without power. Over 2,000 of those are in Acadiana. Those parishes are Acadia, Lafayette, St. Martin, and Vermillion. CLECO is reporting 92 outages with about 6,000 customers affected. Those parishes also include Acadia, Evangeline, Iberia, St. Landry, St. Mary, and Vermillion. And SLIMCO has more than 600 outages with over 1,000 customers affected. Those parishes include Acadia, Iberia, Lafayette, St. Landry, St. Martin, and Vermillion.
Well, and posting on their Facebook page, LUS says surrounding communities are answering the call for help. Now, crews from the city of Tallahassee and Gainesville regional utilities are here ready to help to restore power to people around the area. LUS is also saying an additional 80 tree trimmers, mechanics, and line workers have joined LUS employees to help in the cleanup process.
And Governor Edwards will give the next storm update later on today. At 11, Edwards will hold another unified group command meeting to discuss the storm and preparations. Following that meeting, there will be a press conference with the latest information. In Terrebonne Parish, Coast Guard and local agencies are rescuing people in flooded areas on Island Road. Watchstanders received reports of 12 people in distress due to flooding in their neighborhood. Coast Guard launched a response boat and helicopter. The aircrew hoisted 4 people and their cat and took them to Houma Airport.
And I think we have our crew that's all over Acadiana. I believe we're going to check in with Chris Welty. He's been in Baton Rouge all morning. Hey, Chris, good morning. What are you seeing?
Hey guys, good morning. We're here on the streets of Baton Rouge where it's still fairly quiet. Not a lot of traffic, a few cars passing here and there, but I want you to take a listen to this video that we shot just a little while ago, and you can hear how the wind is so intense. Now, those winds are not sustained winds. Those are just some periodic gusts that we're getting here in the Baton Rouge area. But street level, a lot of stores right now are closed, heeding those warnings, and they're preparing for whatever Barry may throw its way. And a lot of people that we've met at our hotel, there's several weddings happening, so they're hoping. There's several weddings happening in the Baton Rouge area, and they're hoping that Barry will hold off so those weddings can happen tonight. A lot of money on the line. And take a listen to this interview that we shot just a little while ago.
Yes, after the wedding, after the reception, let us have all the fun that we're going to have today before you even get here. After that, you can do whatever you want to do.
And once again, you can see some of the trees blowing here in the Baton Rouge area. The rain hasn't come just yet. We're getting a few sprinkles and some of the mist blowing off the Mississippi River. We're just about maybe 2 blocks from the river right now. Of course, we'll continue monitoring the situation here in Baton Rouge and bring you the very latest. Back to you.
All right, thanks, Chris Welty, reporting live from Baton Rouge. It does get windy occasionally. You know, you and I were standing here.
We actually heard it not too long ago.
Yeah, and we're going to be hearing more of that, especially as the center of the circulation starts to come in a little bit closer. Now, Abby Breidenbach, by the way, we can go ahead and check in with her. She is live outside of the KATC studios. Hey, Abby, what are you feeling this morning?
Good morning, guys. Yeah, just feeling a little bit of wind out here. The rain has actually died down. It was misty a little earlier. So yeah, just some wind. You can probably see a little bit of that wind moving these trees here behind me. Again, kind of a grayish white sky, so hard to see any cloud movement here. But just because it's mild, again, doesn't mean that people should be going out and doing very much today. Actually, we do have some newsroom coming right out of the newsroom right now. Church Point has just issued a curfew for tonight. That will be from 10 o'clock tonight until 6 o'clock tomorrow morning. Of course, as conditions sort of develop, we're going to be getting more curfews coming into the newsroom now, so you're going to want to stay with us here on KATC Live, as well as on KATC.com. We have all of those curfews, not just for Church Point, but for all of Acadiana. We also have some more news for you coming out of the newsroom. We have some road closures to discuss. Now, in St. Mary Parish, these are some new road and bridge closures. There's a tree down at Orphan Home Road and Railroad Avenue. That's in Baldwin. And then in Berwick, near Morgan City, there's also a bridge on Old LA 182 across the Atchafalaya River that has been broken. That is closed as well, and that won't be fixable until the storm has passed. So that one may be closed for a while. And again, we do have that one road closure in Vermillion Parish where the bridge over Humboldt Canal on LA 3147 near Pecan Island, that's closed for vehicles, but it's open for marine traffic. Now stay with us. Again, we're going to keep you updated on those road closures and those curfews, but for now, back to you guys.
All right, thanks, Abby. Of course, airlines are offering some travel waivers, allowing passengers to alter their flight reservations without having to worry about paying additional charges. Those airlines offering those waivers: United, Southwest, Spirit, JetBlue, Frontier, Delta, American, and Alaskan Airlines. The travel waivers do vary from airline to airline with specific criteria. For that information, we have a complete list at KATC.com.
Also in New Orleans, ABC's own Elizabeth Herr waiting this morning for the storm to make landfall. She has more.
Barry pummeling the Gulf Coast even before it makes landfall, with heavy rain and strong winds prompting tornado warnings and leaving tens of thousands without power.
Don't worry about what category this is or whether it's a tropical storm. Our main concern is that this is a rain event.
In Homer, the storm surge encroaching on city streets, and New Orleans prepared for the worst.
Bottom line is stay off the street.
For the first time in history, all of the city's floodgates are closed and residents urged to shelter in place.
I am prepared. I have a lot of water. I went to Sam's and I got everything prepared.
In nearby Jefferson Parish, officials ordering curfews and in some areas mandatory evacuations and encouraging residents who choose to stay to secure their properties.
Residents should make sure that items outside of their homes are secured. That is something we've been trying to stress.
This morning, a number of major airlines are canceling flights to the area. This is the highest the Mississippi River has ever been, with a storm of this magnitude slamming Louisiana. The governor is remaining cautiously optimistic, while the Army Corps of Engineers confident the upgraded levees will contain the Mississippi, at least in New Orleans.
From the levees to the pumps, this is going to be a major test to those systems, not just here, but all across the state. But again, officials say, well, this is going to be a dangerous storm. They do not expect a repeat of Katrina. Elizabeth Herr, ABC News, New Orleans.
That can be kind of frightening sometimes. I mean, every time you go to New Orleans, you get out there to the river, you know, and you notice that the barges are above you anyway on just a normal day.
Yeah.
But when you see those waters all the way up to the top of the levee, and then you think about that those waters have been up at the top of the levee since January. So those levees have been saturated with water. They've been holding this stuff back for such a long time, and not just in New Orleans, but up toward Baton Rouge and up, even farther up inland. And a lot of this moisture that's coming in off the Gulf of Mexico, not only going to dump a lot of rain here in Acadiana, but it's going to scoot its way northward up into Arkansas, northern Mississippi, Missouri, areas that have been flooded. The Mississippi River has been above flood stage pretty much all year.
Yeah, and as you mentioned about New Orleans, they actually saw some flooding earlier this week, so they're probably anticipating and waiting to see what this storm could bring.
And that was kind of scary too, because the flooding that we saw in New Orleans the other day, that was just a heavy rainstorm. In some cases, picking up 8 inches of rain in just a matter of 3 hours. And that's, we've seen these kind of rains here in Lafayette, and you see Ambassador Caffrey end up getting flooded and the traffic can't get through. Fortunately for us, a lot of that water is able to drain fairly quickly and get out of the way, and the roadways are open. I've heard in some cases, I believe Franklin Avenue over in New Orleans is still underwater from those rains that they had back on Tuesday or Wednesday.
Oh, wow. And I know one of the most important things is for people not to drive down those flooded roads. We just had Bill Oliver here with DOTD, so just want to reiterate that don't go on those roads if you see they're flooded.
Well, we're going to head down to Morgan City now. Katie Easter, KATC's Katie Easter is reporting from there.
Hey guys, I'm under Highway 90 here at this bridge where there's actually still sand left here in Berwick. Now they're telling me that the winds are up to 70 miles per hour at this point. It's harder to tell for us because this bridge is helping us block out the wind, but also residents have came out to tell me that they're all out of power in this area and all throughout Morgan City. A lot of people and homes are still out of power, but it's not clear at this point how many homes are without power and when it will come back on. Peter, if you want to show them how hard these trees are blowing, like I said, they have told us that the winds are now up to 70 miles per hour. Live in Berwick, Katie Easter, KTC TV3.
All right, I want to thank Katie Easter and photographer Peter Bayo, who are down in Morgan City, and some of those wind gusts have gotten quite high.
Yeah, and going now to St. Martin Parish, where we find Jason Lamb. He's been in Brobridge, and we are going to we're actually going to move forward. We're not actually going to that.
So you just talk about Jason Lamb and all of the other photographers and reporters, and especially the reporters that you may not have ever seen on KATC. KATC, if you didn't know, is part of a much larger corporation called Scripps, television stations throughout the country. In fact, we've got visitors that are here from West Palm Beach, Nashville, Tampa, Tulsa, and Waco. So if you see them out and about, talk to them, let them know what you're seeing out there, and welcome them to Acadiana. We certainly appreciate them coming in and helping us out with storm coverage when it comes to Tropical Storm Barry. Looks like we're going to be heading over to meteorologist Daniel Phillips now as he stood up back in the storm. Okay, never mind. Yeah. We're going to go to Sarah Hollenbeck over in New Iberia. Sarah is from our Tampa television station. We're going to check with her right now in New Iberia. Good morning, Sarah.
The big thing that we're seeing out here are a lot of wind gusts in New Iberia Park. They have been more active in the last couple minutes, where we see more gusts, even though the rain seems to be tampering off. We've also seen a lot of people still out here in the elements, walking, running around this park. The National Guard still set up out here. We have not seen them come out of the building that they're in behind all of these trucks. They tell us they are still in a standby mode, waiting to know if they need to start those search and rescue missions. As you know, the rain's still very light out here, so the big concern is for flooding, and that's why these high water vehicles are ready to go at a moment's notice as soon as Tropical Storm Barry gets closer. Now, in the back of each and every one of these trucks, I've seen containers of water, a lot of food, a lot of blankets, a lot of tarps, things that they can bring out to the neighborhoods here if they need to. They have these crews, these National Guard crews, in now more than 20 communities across the state of Louisiana, including right here in Iberia. And right now we know that they are on standby, ready to go. We've been talking to the sheriff's office. We've been talking to the parish president. Everybody tells us that they are ready as soon as this storm comes into our area. Everybody here on standby as these gusts are getting stronger right here in New Iberia Park. I'll send it back to you guys in the studio.
All right, thanks, Sarah. She's reporting live here this morning. I believe we're going to be checking in with meteorologist Daniel Phillips. He's been very busy, and also meteorologist Eric Zernick is back in the Storm Team 3 Weather Lab helping out.
Yeah, quick update here if you hadn't seen it. We're still waiting on that 10 o'clock advisory to come down, which should be any minute now. And I think there's two different discussions happening at the National Hurricane Center right now. One is if they bump this up to Category 1 storm. The other is exactly where that center is. And we had talked about, those winds, they kind of picked themselves up to about 75 miles an hour. At least it looked from some of the Hurricane Hunter data. Now, that information officially gets designated from the National Hurricane Center. So we'll wait and see. We got about a half hour to go. We'll get a new track. And I don't think the track is going to change all that much. It's pretty consistent looking now, and I think that it does continue to come up. This is going to be right along the Iberia and Vermillion Parish border there. This works its way up northwards, and it's going to be fairly slow moving at that. So we get to Sunday, 1 a.m., and we're still dealing with this storm here. Eventually washes out sometime in the evening or afternoon, sometime late on Sunday, but then it's still going to be bringing in a ton of that rainfall. I did want to go through the satellite and radar picture here real quick, and we could talk about what we're seeing right now. We'll try and give a little analysis, a little insight on what we think is going to happen with this storm as it gets closer and closer. You can see all of the showers now, and the showers really kind of building offshore, getting ready to work their way up northwards. You've had some showers work their way up over towards Morgan City. The heaviest part of this has been out over towards Mobile, Dauphin Island, Biloxi as well. That's where you're getting some of the heavier shower activity so far, and it's weird to talk about that. We've got a hurricane that's right on the doorstep of Louisiana, and we don't have a whole lot of shower activity with it, and that's just the way that this thing has been set up with all the dry air that's sitting out over towards the north. So we've got some showers starting to set up. Now this is going to be a line of very heavy shower activity that is going to push up into Metairie and Kenner, up into that area, pushing up onto the 310, eventually up over Lake Pontchartrain, and then running parallel to I-55 here, with the showers spreading out over through Terrebonne Parish and getting out over towards Morgan City. You're going to have more showers that are building off in St. Mary Parish. Those are going to continue to try and work their way northwards, and we'll keep our eye on the radar as well. Now, on the other side, on the flip side of that, you do have some showers that are kind of rotating around, and I think what we're seeing is there's a little vortex, there's a little spin that's been going on here, and we were looking at that earlier with the satellite to see if it made landfall. I'm going to point that feature out on the visible satellite here in a moment. You'll be able to see what I'm seeing. And I think that center probably is still sitting just offshore. I think what that was a little spin up that kind of wraps around the edge here. But what you're going to notice, and I think probably within the next half hour or so, I think you're going to see a flare up right around the center, because that's a bit of energy that's going to get caught up under the center as it works its way through. We've talked about how it's intensifying and going to continue to do so, and I think we do get a burst of convection there right towards the center as it works its way closer and closer to landfall. Again, right now winds are at about 70 miles an hour. Gusting up much higher than that. We had a report of a 71-mile-an-hour wind gust down over towards Morgan City. Now you get a little bit closer to the center, and you probably have wind gusts that are pushing up to closer to about 85 miles an hour or so. One of the things that's working against, though, has been this drier air. You got a lot of dry air up over through the northern part of Louisiana, and that is working against this system. It's working for us, but against the system. Now, it's insulated itself somewhat, but it's still trying to inject itself into the storm, and all of this shear, this upper-level wind, is going to kind of cut this thing in half. That's why we haven't had much development out over towards the north. That really is why we haven't seen much in the way of showers just yet, but you do have a lot of heavy shower activity sitting just offshore and some very heavy weather there. So this is what I was talking about earlier. There was a little bit of a spin that was right out over towards Lafayette, right around the time that thing got going, and we noticed it. There was a big wind gust here. Now what's going to happen is it looks like it's rotating around, and it's going to get caught up right around here, which is going to be in the center, and I think that's why we're going to end up seeing a flare up here probably within the next half hour or hour or so. You'll see a burst of convection, and you may see some of those winds picking up as it's working its way on shore. Again, still think landfall is going to be right around the Category 1 storm. Some of the observations we've got going on right now, we do have winds out of home at about 40 miles an hour. Looks like the sensor on at Patterson is down, but on South St. Mary Parish, you've got 45 to 50 mile an hour wind gusts that's going to spread, or sustained winds rather, that's going to spread all the way through Terrebonne. Winds from the east down over towards Lafayette. Opelousas is going to be at about 18. Down over towards Abbeville, you've got them coming in out of the southeast right now. We had northerly flow out over towards the other side. That's going to help keep some of the water offshore there as well. When it comes to the wind gusts, it's been a little bit stronger. We got a look here at some of the gusts that we've seen. We saw them get as high as about 30, 35 out through Lafayette. Right now, winds are gusting at 38 in Ville Platte. Out over towards Franklin, Morgan City, that's where we saw that 70-mile-an-hour wind gusts down through there. Donaldsonville, 62-mile-an-hour wind gusts. So things are deteriorating. It's just taking a little bit longer, I think, than we originally anticipated. Thought that, by this time things were really going to get going, but this thing has hit the brakes and is not moving all that much. Quick run through the model here. We're going to wait for some of the more data to come in. But you can see that even though that center is getting close, all the rain is built on the east and the south side of this system. So it's going to be several days worth of rainfall that we're going to be seeing throughout the afternoon, going overnight tonight, and then into tomorrow as well. Very heavy downpours, a corridor's worth of rain is going to be out there, and that's going to soak a lot of people, and in some cases it's going to bring some pretty dangerous flooding out through the area. We're talking 15 to 20, 25 inches worth of rain somewhere in Louisiana. It is going to be right on our doorsteps, and that's kind of the scary thing. So there's going to be a pretty tight weather gradient here, but from the east to the west, it will get much drier the further westward you go, but there is going to be that corridor that kind of sets up that 15 to 20 inch type rainfall. Hot spots about 25 to 30 inches as well. That's going to be the really big concern here as we go forward through the rest of the day today, and then as we go overnight tonight in particular, and then by tomorrow morning, I think we're still dealing with a lot of it. So quickly here, this is what we've got. And when you do see 15 to 25 inches worth of rainfall, homes and businesses usually can take on a lot of water. That could make places that ordinarily would not have seen flooding before could end up seeing some water coming in. That could lead to rescues and evacuations. That could become very important if that goes on overnight, especially in the dark. That makes all of this very difficult. So again, don't let your guard go down as we go our way through the rest of the day. Guys?
Thanks, Daniel. Well, even in the time of despair, one can find laughter. Patterson Mayor Rodney Grogan also found some humor this morning while surveying his town for storm damage. This is a photo of Edward Gray, who had to chase down his ducky after Barry's gusty winds blew it away.
Well, Patterson Mayor Rodney Grogan posting these photos too of the storm this morning. Some of the storm damage. Fortunately, no one was injured when a tree fell into this home on Hickory Street in Patterson. Police say winds from Barry blew the tree over.
Trees are down in Baldwin. This one is blocking the road. Baldwin volunteer firefighters posted this picture of a tree blocking Orphan Home Road near its intersection with Railroad Avenue.
And thousands across the state are in the dark this morning. More than 50,000 Entergy customers are without power. Almost 1,000 of those are right here in Acadiana. Those parishes are Acadia, Lafayette, St. Martin, and Vermillion. And Cleco is reporting 156 outages with about 7,000 customers affected. Those parishes include Acadia, Evangeline, Iberia, St. Landry, St. Mary, St. Martin, as well as Vermillion. And Slimco has more than 100 outages in St. Landry, St. Martin, as well as Vermillion parishes.
And here's a view of Louisiana Highway 1 from South Lafourche Levee. Golden Meadow Police Chief Reggie Pete shot this video. Lafourche Parish Sheriff Craig Pete is strongly encouraging residents to stay home, even though the curfew was lifted at 8 a.m. Overnight, deputies cleared several trees from parish roads, but there is still a lot of debris on the highways, and more than 5,000 people are without power this morning.
Now we're going to go to St. Martin Parish, where we're going to check in with KATC's Jason Lamb.
We are here off of Reese Street in St. Martin Parish, just off of I-10. We're at a pilot gas station, and this is kind of the scene we have been looking at all morning long, with folks filling up with gas here while they still can. There still is several gas stations here where folks can stop and get gas in case they are looking to leave the area before the brunt of this storm hits. Over the last several minutes, it's really just been kind of on and off. There will be a wave of some wind and rain coming through, and then it will let up a little bit. But we have seen several drivers still out on the roads here just before the very start of this storm really gets through the area. Earlier today, though, we talked with a trooper with the Louisiana State Police, who is telling us everything we need to know ahead of the storm's arrival and just some of the conditions on the roads. Here's what he had to say.
Fortunately, it's the weekend, so we don't have a lot of traffic out there. People are heeding the warning to stay off the roadway for the most part. There is light.
We'll be right back here